Hello, welcome to my channel, another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and today I am sitting in the basement of the home I purchased today. It is a completely empty home. There is a truck outside full of my possessions and my books, but the movers do not come in to unload that truck until tomorrow morning. And today I want to do a brief update of what I have been reading. Even though I am not working this month, I've actually been very busy preparing for this move. But I have done some reading. The main books I've been reading so far are Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco, and I am reading that with a Voxer group set up by Summer at Cozy Books with Quaker Cats. And that is a really good Voxer group. We are all getting into this mystery. Now, I have read this book before, so I do know who the murderer is and the reason why the murderers are being committed. And it's very interesting to read this book afterwards and pick up on all the clues that Umberto Eco is leaving. He really is masterful at leaving little seeds that you can pick up on if you know what you're looking for. I am also reading, or finished just reading, A Confederacy at Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. That is a book that I've read before, and it is one of my favorite books of all time. I am again reading that for the Humorous Book group on Voxer, and it is a very lively discussion. I love Ignatius Reilly, and I hate Ignatius Reilly. He's just that kind of character that you have to despise him and adore him at the same time. He is so outrageous and so over the top with his plans and his schemes and his worldview that is totally skewed. But ultimately, I kind of agree with a little bit of what he says. He is very in tune with injustices of the world, but has no idea how to make the world a more just world. He completely botches it, and it is absolutely hilarious. I have also finished a basically throwaway horror novel called Come Closer by Sara, Gran. This is about a woman in her mid-30s. She is married and living in New York, and she has become possessed by a demon. Maybe. That makes it a horror novel if she's possessed, or a thriller novel if she's only thinks she's possessed. I read this basically in a day, not quite a day. I started it in the evening one night and read about half of it and then finished the second half in the morning. So it is a book almost anyone can read in one day. It is very simply written. In many aspects, I think the book is too simply written. It just does not have any meat into the prose. And the characters are just not that well, there's not that much depth to the characters. It is a book meant to be read quickly and throw away. It's a fine novel for what it is, but that's just it. It's just a throwaway horror novel. I have also been participating in Shaketober or Shaketober. I have not been reading any Shakespeare plays, but I have been watching some video productions called The Hollow Crown. And so far I have watched Richard II and Henry IV Part 1. I was supposed to watch Henry IV Part 2 yesterday afternoon, but life sort of interfered with me and I couldn't get that done. I do want to make time for Henry IV Part 2 and Henry V. Now, what I have really enjoyed about this is that there is a definite progression between these plays. In Richard II, you get to see Henry Bolingbroke basically overthrow Richard II. And Richard II had the belief that he had the divine right of kings, that God had anointed him king. And it was very devastating for him to lose his kingship to an upstart like Henry Bolingbroke. Now, the video production was excellent. The one thing that I didn't quite like was some of the imagery and the Christ-like imagery of Richard II after he had been deposed. I suppose that has to do with the divine right of kings. I did not really spoil the production. It was just a little heavy-handed for me. Not being a Christian, I just said, oh yeah, okay, he's like Christ. Now Henry IV was excellent. There's just this marvelous interplay between Hal and Falstaff. And the acting was absolutely superb. You could see that relationship between those two men and what a great friendship they had. And how tragic that's going to turn a little bit later, because I have read Henry the Fourth Part 2 before. And I have read Henry V before too, so those are very exciting plays to be watching. After that, I don't know what I'm going to do. I am listening to an audiobook. Oh, I forgot to say about my audiobooks. I have finished a audiobook called Shadowplay by Joseph O'Connor, and this was a historical novel about Bram Stoker. And it starts before he was writing Dracula, and he was hired by a playhouse owned by a very famous actor called Henry Irving. And now he hires a very famous actress called Helen Turney, and how they basically make Bram Stoker the play manager, and how he starts writing Dracula in this playhouse, in this abandoned part of the playhouse. And I thought that was, I don't know if that's true or not, if Bram Stoker actually wrote Dracula in that way, but it was very fabulous, because he started bringing in characters and little bits and pieces of how Dracula was written. In this novel, they had a painter called Jonathan Harker, who they hired, and I found that very interesting. And I don't think the author would invent that much of a character, but maybe he did. I just don't know enough about Bram Stoker's life. But I had reread Dracula about 2 months ago in preparing for this audiobook. And I like this audiobook a lot. It's a very literary book. There's no action or not a whole lot of plot, because Bram Stoker's life probably just wasn't the most exciting life for an author to have. I have also been listening to an audiobook, The Wisdom of Crowds by Joe Abercrombie. And this is a fantasy novel. This is a third in his series called The Age of Madness. And what is interesting about this fantasy series is that the author has let the world have an industrial revolution. So this is basically the second series in this world. In the first series, there was no real technology. And now they have invented like gunpowder and cannons and machinery. So I find that fascinating, that the author is letting his world progress and not sticking it into this medieval world for ages and ages. And he is a very rough fantasy writer. He is not friendly. It is not adventures. All of his characters are flawed. He has one of the greatest flawed characters. He was a torturer, and that torture does feature in this novel a bit, but it focuses mostly on his daughter. And I've been enjoying it. And what I think I like about it also is there's not a lot of magic in these fantasy novels. It's a very low magic world. But when the magic shows up, it is so nasty and so deadly that it's fascinating. And I don't know how much more I will be reading this month. As I said, I have to start unpacking my books in the next few days. So that's going to be taking a lot of my time. So it's mostly going to be audiobooks. I will finish this fantasy novel. And then I will probably start on Barchester Towers by Anthony Trollope. I don't know if that will bring me into October for Victober. If I finish it before then, which is possible, depending on how much time I devote to unpacking and can listen at the same time, I will go on to Dr. Thorne, which is the second in this series of Barchester books. And that is essentially it. I would like to thank you for watching, and stay tuned for a brief tour of my empty library, or where my future library will go. Thank you for watching. Good night.